First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming in today and participating in this morning's conversation. It warms my heart to see so many faces that I've worked with over the years, listened to you personally, professionally, or privately. Warms my heart to get a hug as I walk in the door. That means a lot to me. So for each and every one of you, thank you so very much. And today's conversation, this morning's conversation, for me, it's what I do. For you, it's a moment in time in life where things get complicated and difficult, right? How do we high-five each other when we're having a conversation about mental health? How do we get excited about this complex conversation? And for me, I will have to share with you that every situation that I walk into as a professional, every moment is complicated, it's difficult. Sometimes it takes all the energy out of me. But the most wonderful thing is this. When I have a conversation and someone says, "Thank you, you saved my life." Full stop, we don't need to talk anymore. Make sense? So our conversation today is to kind of elevate, to look at, to take a perspective with regards to mental health. From a vantage point where each and every one of us can contribute to someone's wellness. Beth and I, we have the opportunity to talk. We have an opportunity to cultivate through, a little plug, Beth. What do we do on a monthly basis?
Wellness webinars.
Wellness webinars. How many of you participate in the wellness webinars? Wow, this is awesome. Now you get a chance to see the 6'4" of me versus the little 2" of me, or the 1" of me on the screen. And what a blessing, working with Beth and her team, and then working with my team to look at the different topics, information to support your emotional wellness and your occupational wellness. From a self-care perspective, providing insight, providing little tidbits, helping you create new habits, helping you look at things a little bit differently. So let's start off with this. How many of us are dealing with mental health? No, don't raise your hand. But how many of us are dealing with mental health issues? How many of us are dealing with family members who have complications and difficulty? All right, you can raise your hand. No, you don't need to raise your hands on that one. How many of us wake up in the morning sometimes and we go, wow, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through this particular situation? How many of us have children who are dealing with the seasons of life and the complications of life? How many of you can get rid of your children who continue to be with you through the seasons of life, right? How many of you contribute to their financial wellness, right? How many of us have a significant other that has difficulty? How many of us have a significant other who has maybe some emotional issues, maybe addiction issues? Maybe they can't stop with their addiction. How many of us gone through a divorce? How many of us have gone through a death? How many of us lost a significant other in our life? How many of us are walking through a pathway? And I'll have to share with you, all of us are dealing with life events and mental health issues. All of us. And so what does that make us? We're human. You know, so my new t-shirt is, I am flawed, right? Because I know I'm flawed. I know I make mistakes. I know I need some assistance in my life. I don't care how many alphabets I have at the end of my name, I can tell you that every day I wake up going, okay, how am I going to get through this particular moment? How am I going to deal with this particular situation? How am I going to balance the responsibilities from my professional life, my personal life, and my private life? How many of us take time to recognize our emotional dashboard where we're looking at maybe some yellow things, maybe some red things in our emotional dashboard. And then today's conversation is, what happens if one of my colleagues are dealing with the same thing that we've just talked about? What happens if one of our colleagues is dealing with the same situations that we're dealing with, but maybe they don't have the ability to cope? Maybe, just maybe, they may be wired a particular way. They were given a gift, and that gift may not be where they can cope with certain life events and circumstances. So here's my one hope from today's conversation. When you see something, when you hear something, you take a moment and you process it, and you see how you can contribute. What little contributions can you make so that someone can go from a red area to a yellow area to a green area? Make sense? And if it was only that easy, right? If it's only that easy. How many of us have a situation where we're watching one of our colleagues go through a very difficult time personally, and it's affecting their professional life, and I'm a colleague. How do I have that conversation? So as you can see, we're unfolding. So as the human resources director, Glenn and I were sitting and we were talking about how can we launch today's conversation as you guys continue to explore today, look at growing as professionals, maybe enhancing your skill sets. As you look at the different breakouts, I can bring one or two bits and pieces as I help individuals or help myself so I can help individuals. So what I'd like to do is to basically say, listen, from a human resource perspective, all of us can make little subtle contributions. We all can take a look at little tiny habits. When we're dealing with really complex mental health issues, sometimes it's a little bit easier. And I say that with complete respect. Why is it easier? We call 911, they come, 911 gets them, and then takes them to a facility. And then they do their thing. When it's that gray area in between, and we're trying to dance around, trying to figure, trying to understand, trying to validate, trying to capture more data, trying to ask key questions, important questions, that's when it's gray. That's when it's hard. That's when it's difficult. So this is not about just supervisors. It's not just about it's about us being people, part of an organization. And the strength of the organization is based upon each and every one of you and your ability to be proficient and to have capacity with what you do and how you do it. When one of us is dealing with a problem, a mental health problem, and sometimes we don't know what to do. Sometimes we're uncomfortable. Sometimes, I don't know, what do you when you walk up to someone and you can feel that energy, you can look into their eyes and you can look into their soul through their eyes and you feel uneasiness. How many of you are ready and prepared to handle that? Well, after today's conversation, you will. Kind of, sort of, maybe. We're never comfortable. And I don't care how many alphabets you have at the end of your name. It's always difficult, and each situation is very unique. It's never the same. The variables that contribute to an individual situation. I don't know, does this make sense? Does it make sense, right? So there's a preamble. So let's kind of dance a little bit. Take a moment, take a look at today's conversation, understanding, recognizing, applying, maybe some tools, maybe some strategies. So that way there, when you have a situation, personal, private, or professional, that comes up, you feel a little bit more comfortable when you're having that conversation. When you're having a conversation with someone who says, I don't want to live anymore, I want to hurt myself. I'm so frustrated, I want to run away. Or you walk into a situation where someone is using alcohol and their impairment just continues. Or when there's a loss of a family member and the grieving process is just so overwhelming. where you have a little bit more confidence in yourself and your ability to sit down and have that conversation with the individual. Okay, and oh, by the way, the slide deck is available. And oh, by the way, it's being recorded. And as well, if any and all of you would like to continue that conversation, my contact information will be available. I'll be more than happy to continue to unfold with you as part of our services at Quantum. So that's what we're here for. So just a little bit of a preamble. Okay, you don't have to control your thoughts, you just have to stop letting them control you. How many times have now you can raise your hand. How many of times have we, our mind was just going in so many places that it's just it's a carnival in your mind and every ride is going. How many of us have had that? Many of us. So how do we soothe? How do we turn that off?
Focus.
Sorry?
Focus.
Focus? Umbrella drinks? Subtle, one umbrella drink, a very good umbrella drink, right? All right, a little bit of humor there. Hey, listen, I'm a substance abuse counselor. I have a background in alcohol addiction, but I do like my umbrella drink. Let's just be honest with each other. Every once in a while, there's nothing wrong with that, right? As long as it's in the appropriate place and appropriate time, and so forth and so on, right? A little preamble there. So how do we settle down for just a moment? How do we soothe?
Breathe.
Okay, breathing.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Replace it. Replace that thought with something else.
Okay, so we can replace our thoughts. So now we're talking about some tools, right? So what are some of the tools that we can use? When our mind is in a really bad spot, what causes that? What's the physiological reason for our mind going into its place? Anxiety. Okay, that's a label. That's a term. Fight or flight. What's like one of the things inside our brain housing group that affects our fight or flight? Okay. Your adrenaline's being produced. Fear. You see something. Your limbic system. Good job. Your limbic system starts getting fired up. And is the limbic system a good thing? Of course it is. But it's also a way to keep you alive, but it's also a thing that can drive you absolutely out of your mind. All right? You start getting into loops. And so there's different ways to soothe the body. But what ends up happening for some of us, our body isn't wired as soundly as it needs to be physiologically. How many of us are going through different seasons of our life? How many of us have changes in our life hormonally? All of us. Okay, everybody. We had a lot of gray hair here, right? Well, it is what it is, right? So when you understand what's behind the scenes. So for many and most of us, we're always running down symptoms, right? We're constantly taking this pill or we're looking at this or that or whatnot. But at the end of the day, if you're still on the fire, you're still going to keep burning. So you can take all the pills you want. You can look at all the little quick remedies that you see on YouTube and hashtag this and hashtag that. But if you're still in the fire, it'll continue to keep circulating, right? And for some of us, and it's part of our conversation later on today, which I'm really excited about. For some of us, we understand emotions, and we're going to explore that a little bit later on. So if you come back later on, we're going to open that up a little bit. But for some of us, our emotions drive the train versus our prefrontal cortex. Does that make sense? And so what ends up happening is we start circling, and then we start circling, and then we get into a spiral that we can't get out of, right? And once we start that spiraling, we can't get level, we can't pull out, and we continue to descend. And for some of us, we keep going and we keep going, and we get to the point where we're about to hit the ground. And for some of us, we can't get control of it. And for some of you, you work with a colleague who's left or right of you who's going through that, and you're watching it unfold. Or you're living with someone and you're watching it unfold. Or you're related to someone, or they're a friend of yours, or it's your sibling, or it's your child, and you're trying to help them. So what do we do? How do we help them? I finally got a hand in the air. Thank you.
If they have a problem, be open to listening to them.
It-
Say if you listen.
Wonderful. Take time to send a message, I'm here to listen, right? I don't know that there's a perfect answer. We're going to be talking about some techniques, and I'll have to share with you that the tools that you use for one individual may be a little bit different for another individual. So you need to have a toolbox that is adaptive for the environmental conditions, right? And the environmental conditions are going to be very different. What's causing or contributing to that mental health issue is going to be very different from one individual to another. We may all look the same, but it may be very, very different. But I think you brought up a very good point, and that is taking time to hear someone share their story. And as a professional in the field, that's what we do. I'm not here to impute what's right or what's wrong. I'm not here to judge someone. I'm not here to say anything other than I'm listening. Help me understand. Or maybe ask key questions so the person is willing to unfold. And then from that information, then we can maybe take some other steps. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So are there times when we at Quantum get a phone call and someone within the workplace communicated somewhere, some way that they want to hurt themselves? Yes. And we're grateful that they do. Because you know what they are? They're in a place where they're frustrated. They don't know where to turn. They don't know how to fix it. They're upset, whatever emotion you want to attach to it. But I'll have to say that it's a blessing that the individual voiced their feelings. Because now we can do something. It's the person who's quiet, who doesn't say a word, that unfortunately those are the ones that complete, right? So when someone is sharing, I think that's the safest time. My colleagues in the field may think a little bit differently, but I think we have an indicator. We have a flag up in the air from that individual. And at that point, I want you to be comfortable and feel comfortable that you can have a conversation with someone so they can share their story. That doesn't mean that you have to do something with it. You're solving the problem, but you can be an enabler for success, an enabler for recovery, an enabler for finding the right resource for them. Because in many cases, when an individual is emotionally upside down, is dealing with complexity, their aperture for looking at what's right has filters on it. They can't see what you can see. The aperture, meaning what they're seeing with their eyes, is caught up with their mind's thought, right? So having that conversation and sitting and talking with them. So understanding mental health, it can be episodic. It can also be an event, a circumstance, a complication in their life. We have a couple of monikers that are out there with regards to critical incidents. They have some labels that they use. For those of us who have come across maybe a motor vehicle accident and we've seen something very complex. For those of us who have lost a family member and it was very complex. For those of us who watched a very, very, very difficult situation and we can't get it out of our mind. I'll share with you that and for some of you may or may not know, I'm retired military, and I can share with you that for years, every night I was waking up in a sweat. Every night I was dealing with a very complex situation in my mind. I never left, and it kept staying with me. I would wake up and kind of figure it out. Got to the point where I had to go to the emergency room. And I'm a guy with alphabets at the end of his name and blah, 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 and whatnot. And I'm sharing with you now, and I'm comfortable with that because I don't care. No, I'll retract that. It's important to understand that no matter who you are, you're all susceptible. You're human. And if it wasn't for that really cool chick who helped me and get me through and put me through very specific programs that took years for me to unfold, I don't have those dreams anymore. And I'm blessed, and I'm grateful. That's probably the reason why I'm in this field. It's because of my own baggage, my own backpack full of stuff. And so with that said, I have empathy. And here at our organization, we all have empathy because we've all have gone through some type of life event, and it allows us to have a better understanding. So it can be episodic. It could be also be wiring, how you are wired as an individual. How many of you go to the holidays and you say, my family is bloody crazy? How many of you say that the nuts in my family tree, right, are plentiful, right? We 100%. So for some of us, it's wiring. For some of us, it's an event. For some of us, it's change of life. For some of us, it's comorbid conditions. So going back to our conversations, Beth, with regards to the wellness wheel, for those of you who haven't attended, we had all of our series always goes back to the wellness wheel. And what are the different okay, for those of you who participated in the session, what are the different components of the wellness wheel, everybody? Number 1, that's right, emotional wellness. Number 2, physical wellness. Great, you guys are on a roll. Let's keep going. Number 3, spiritual wellness. Number 4, intellectual wellness. Thank you very much. Number 5, financial wellness. Awesome, you guys are great. Number 6, occupational wellness. You guys are amazing. Number 7, environmental wellness. Perfect. Number 8, social. We have some. She's got 2 in a row here. Social wellness. And number 9, and I'll leave that for the end. You guys keep ruminating on it a little bit. Number 9. Awesome. I'm impressed. You guys did a great job. Yes, exactly right. So all of those wellness components all connect. All of them contribute. All of them play a part in this particular slide right here. And so for some of us, we have to take a look at not just talking to a counselor for emotional wellness. We have to take a look at the other components in our life because they all contribute. I can sit there and I can talk with you all day long, but if you keep doing the same thing over and over in these other areas, it's going to be a problem. I can talk to you all day long about your feelings about being depressed, but if your husband keeps cheating on you, there's nothing we can do, right? If your children create a catastrophe in your house and your environmental wellness is upside down, there's nothing we can do if they keep doing it, if they keep bringing people in the house that they shouldn't be bringing in. If you keep spending money way beyond your capacity and keep building up credit card debt, your emotional wellness is not going to be there. Occupationally, if you don't come to work and do your job, if you come to work and you make everybody mad around you, or you do really not good things at work and you're going to lose your job, that's going to affect your emotional wellness and your financial wellness. You see how it's all connected? Okay. So what are some of the occupational components where there's complexity, right? So for some of us, we're in situation, for those of you in the gray shirts, what department are you guys in? Highway. All right. Unfortunately, I worked with the Turnpike, right? I've been involved with critical incidents where employees have been hit while working on the highway, killed while working on the highway, looking at a washout, and unfortunately, someone on their phone hits them, runs into them, or something of that nature. So, yes, complicated problem set. So it's quite possible that while you're out there on the road, it's unsafe. That could be an issue. Some of the departments, who you serve in the community, how you serve in the community, where you are from a moniker perspective within the organization, role and responsibility, accountability. For some of us, we work with the public, and when we're public facing with our responsibility, that can be complicated because the public, unfortunately, they need some help. For some of us, we work with certain social economic populations within the community, and they come through the door with stuff, right? And thank the Lord you guys are here doing what you do to take care of them, but they bring their stuff with them. So when we look at the occupations, our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, our uniformed services, obviously that stands on its own. But I will have to say that there's many of us who support the community and our role, and it can become very complicated and very, very difficult, and we don't want to minimize that within the organization all the way across the board. Now, at Quantum, we get a chance to get a sneak peek at every organization and also the different departments, all the different complications because of what we do. And obviously that's private information. But what that does is it supports the fact that we have occupational situations that pop up that cause and contribute. We also have situations where an individual's ability to perform the essential functions of the position become complicated because of their mental health issue. I'll give you for an example. We had a case, HR called. We have a very unsafe situation. This employee is going to hurt themselves. We sense he's going to commit harm to self. Unfold the story, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. When they went to his cubicle, there was gummies, all different types of gummies, with pins through the gummies. And what are those little dolls that where you could put the pins in it? Voodoo dolls. Okay. So he had pins going through all these different gummies and all over his. So if you were a colleague and you walked across that, what would you think? Something's going on. Okay. Reader's Digest version. I said, did you guys happen to? Was he evaluated? Was he hired under a certain class of individuals? They have programs with individuals with certain disabilities. No, he's been with us for X number of years. He does a good job. What does he do? It was basically a mechanical job. He took from A, went to B. From A to B. It was repetitive. Wash, rinse, repeat. They wanted to send him to the emergency room. I said, let's not do that. Let's get him in front of our counselors. So one of our counselors. The counselor was like, based upon what I'm hearing, I'm not comfortable. I'm like, just take a moment, just assess, sit down with the individual. If you have a problem, give us a call, but just talk with this individual. Okay, the individual has autism, okay? The individual lives with his parents. Both of his parents died. He was being removed from his home because there's no one there who has supervision and put into some group home somewhere. What was he sharing with his little animals being pinned? He was frustrated. he needed someone to understand him. He needed to be validated. He needed someone to communicate with him. He was basically reaching out, and no one knew what was going on. He had no one to turn to. So sometimes, when we sit down and we talk, sometimes we get an opportunity to hear someone's story, to have a better understanding of what they're dealing with, right? Sometimes there's a conversation. Sometimes there's a conversation that I'll have with a client, and we'll sit and we'll talk, and next thing you know is she is being, she's in a situation where she's in domestic violence. And oh, by the way, she's getting beaten up by someone who looks and sounds like me. So am I the right person? Not necessarily. So I have to self-disclose. Can I share, hey, listen, I understand, it's okay. Shall I assign you to someone else? Because I think it's more, I want you to be comfortable. Can you trust me? Do you feel comfortable? And sometimes just having that conversation, the person recognizes and realizes that not all persons who look like me or with my voice are harmful, right? I can help them in a couple different ways, but I can be collaborative. So in any event, so in our roles, what's your role when someone is in an unsafe place at work, when they say something? What's your role? Yes, ma'am.
Go to HR and tell them they'll return it to you.
Go to HR. That's absolutely a course of action. You can absolutely do that.
Assess the situation.
Assess the situation. I really like that. Listen. Take a moment with a calm mind and a calm approach. Have a better understanding of what's going on so that you can bring the other resources to the table. 100%. Right? Keep it simple. Keep it right to the point. Caring. How you talk. Lean forward. Use your nonverbal communication. 80% of your communication is nonverbal. Right? So when you look calm, the person will see that you're calm. You may not have the right words, and that's okay. Don't worry about having the right words. Keep brevity at hand, and just ask open-ended questions, and then maybe ask some closed questions, yes, no's, and then binary, and then some open-ended questions so that you can have a better understanding. So for those of us who, now we're going to talk a little bit about how do we fill our cup? How do we elevate? How do we get through difficult situations, right? When your ATM of resilience is depleted and there's nothing, and you're not making deposits from a personal perspective, right? You're not making deposits on soothing. You're not making deposits on your social wellness, your emotional wellness, your physical wellness, your financial wellness, all those other wellnesses. Your resilience bank goes down. It goes from green to red, right? How many of you have gone on a vacation this past summer that was like really, really cool? All right, sir, what's your first name?
Chris.
Chris. So when you got done with vacation, thank you for sharing. When you got done with vacation, how did you feel?
I felt like myself.
You felt like yourself again, right? Recharged? I just got off a really, really cool vacation. I've been saving for it for a couple of years, and it was absolutely amazing. So I'm still on a little bit of a high right now. And so I'm like you, I'm feeling really good. So my social wellness, my physical wellness is a little bigger than it should be because of the food that I had, but we'll talk about that later on. I have some work to do. But I feel really good inside because I was able to do something that I worked really hard for and I saved for, and the people I went with were just absolutely amazing, filled my cup, right? All right, my resilience is a little high right now. I'm in a good spot for not just my vacation, but because of a couple of other things that are those contributions. How many of you take time physically to get your blood flow going on a daily basis? Awesome. I just was listening to a gentleman, 82 years old, gets to the gym at 4:45 every day. 82! Gets to the gym at 4:45 every day, then goes to work and he's still an author, still writing books. Looks amazing. Speaks no skip and a step. Really exciting for me to see people do that. So continue to look, assess where you are. If you've got some red areas in your whole person approach to wellness, then take time to make subtle changes, little habits, to go ahead and make those deposits in your resilience bank. Okay, I think we've talked about this slide. What I think the takeaway is, we are not mental health counselors in the workplace, right? For those of you who are mental health counselors and you happen to be working for the county, you've got some tools in your toolbox. Great, wonderful. But your role at work is to listen, understand. Maybe if the person has some questions, help them best understand what resources are available, and then facilitate, maintain confidentiality, maintain privacy, right? Does that all sound good? We're not tattletaling on anyone, and we're not getting anyone into trouble. We're actually helping them get through a little intersection in life, and right now they're stuck in that intersection. And if they stay there, they're going to get hit by oncoming traffic. So your role is to get them through that intersection, get to the other side, look at some options at the future intersection, and get them to a safe place, so that way they can pick up and go from there. And if you can and we can do a full stop, that's your role. And so depending upon what department you work in, depending upon your role, your responsibility, your context may be a little bit different. I can share with you that with my networks, I have different networks, and then with my military network, we have context that we probably shouldn't share with anyone, right? But it's our context, and it allows us to be safe with each other. And we help each other immensely get through very complex situations. And the same thing with my professional side as well. Okay, any questions with regards to your role as a team member here in Monmouth County and mental health within the workplace? Okay, thank you. All right, creating an environment that's psychologically safe. So for those of us who have a position of authority or a position of responsibility, we have a moniker associated, we're being compensated to perform higher level functioning at work, or supervisor, manager, whatever term you want to use. The next class that we're going to talk about, I think, will really help unfold this particular slide and allow you to deep dive and look at self and understand maybe where do I have to make some changes. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know that if you've been here for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, or 40 years. Anybody been here for 40 years? 1, 2, congratulations. All right. We all have responsibility for making or creating and crafting and incubating a safe place psychologically at work, right? That doesn't mean to allow someone to come to work and not do their job. That's not what I'm saying, right? What we're saying is we can influence, we can provide an environmental conditions, we can provide context, we can provide levels of emotional intelligence within the workplace to foster capacity and proficiency and maintain a very safe workplace. So that'll unfold if you guys are here. And if you're not here this afternoon, not a problem. I think it's going to be recorded, but I think you'll get some really good information in there. All right, so the different support services that are available from the county, which the county has an amazing menu of benefits. So for example, you have resources in the community, you can go right to those resources. You have social networks, you have social support systems that are out there. There's so many different things that you can do socially to help get through that particular moment. So I'm not suggesting that someone has to be licensed or that has to be a benefit. There's so much that's out there that's wonderful. But if you need, or you want to complement, or you want to bolt on, obviously the Employee Assistance Program is a place to have a conversation where we at the EAP program will listen, assess, gather information, help you have a better understanding of what's going on, and get you to a level of care that's going to be appropriate for you. We are non-medical counseling. My associate Lisa will be at the desk, and we have some materials out there. You can ask her some questions, or if you just want to grab some materials to put by your desk, she's going to be there in the auditorium. Okay? The next level of support services is through your medical benefit plan. We also have different programs in the community that are licensed or that are nonprofit or that are educational. So the support services as a professional, depending upon what we see, what we understand, what we validate with that individual, we can get them to a level of care so that way there, it's either care or education, so that way there they can redirect while they're in that intersection of complexity in their life. Does that make sense? This is an important slide because this is the next step once you have that conversation with the individual. You can contact your human resources department and keep anonymity, gather information, and that way there you can go back to your colleague, share that, or you can talk with human resources and have a private, confidential conversation with regards to a colleague and supporting them. You can go to your union membership team. You can go, there's a couple of different ways of managing it. You have to feel comfortable with what's right for you. Most importantly, remember, when you're talking with someone, you can have a conversation with someone and redact the name of an individual, right? You can redact the name of the individual to keep privacy, but also gather information on what the next steps are, right? So there's a number of different ways of doing this. You can contact Quantum and say, you know what, I don't know where to turn to, but I need some help. So there's a number of different ways that you can go about depending upon the severity or the complexity. If an individual is making you uncomfortable and you are very uncomfortable with a situation, the purpose at that point is to get them at the level of care that they need. So we're going to elevate. We're going to ask you to step up, step in. And of course, if it's a really uncomfortable situation, dial 911. Make sense? Okay, so we have a protocol. So we're following protocols. These are all protocols that we're unfolding together. All right, so daily habits. During our training through the benefits team, we talked about creating habits. How do we create daily habits? With your self-assessment, understanding of your wellness, looking at those areas that are red, and then making subtle little tiny changes so you can make deposits in your resilience box, reaching out to individuals who may have capacity or have a better understanding, including them in on your social circle. If you have friends that are really proficient or they have a really good understanding of, let's say, getting blood flow going or resistance training or intellectual wellness or any of those areas, create some small habits because at the end of the day, your limbic system wants to soothe. And you have to go from there. I got 5 minutes. All right, so I got to rock and roll. All right, your limbic system has to soothe. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in our next session. All right. Perfect timing, Glenn. Thank you very much. Did you read my slide deck? You did, didn't you? All right, so a conversation that we don't typically have, but it's an authentic conversation so that we feel more informed. My hope is that each and every one of you will get through an intersection similar, like in kind, with confidence and more clarity, a lens of problem solving, recognizing that you're not the solution, you're an enabler to a situation, you're fostering, you're incubating, right? That's what we're doing. So in my organization, we're the tip of the conversation, right? So our role is to help foster, gather, enable, all that stuff to get individuals where they need to be. All right, why do people struggle? So I'm going to turn around, I'm going to read this with you. See what my number one is, Beth? What's my number one? There's a knowledge deficit there. They have knowledge deficit. They don't recognize that there's other areas that are contributing to what's going on in their emotional wellness. For some of us, I can honestly tell you that 30 years ago, there's no way in holy hockey sticks that I would have shared with you that I went to treatment. It wasn't going to happen. I'm in a different place in life, and I want to share my story because I think it's important to be authentic. And so what's really wonderful is that we're not looking at mental health as being that thing over there. We all have mental health, and we all need a little bit of assistance. It doesn't give you a free card to just be, daily crazy, right? But what it means is that we all can talk about it and get you where we need to be. Many of us have unhealthy coping mechanisms, and because of our unhealthy mechanisms, it's a feedback loop. It continues to do. I can honestly share with you that you take a look at the adult population, which I happen to be part of that adult population right now, but for those individuals who have Alzheimer's, memory issues, things of that nature, when they get to a certain place in their life, this is probably one of the most complexing parts because they can't get out of that loop and they create unhealthy habits. For some of us, being exposed to very difficult situations, and I'll have to guarantee most of you have very poor boundaries with regards to individuals that are causing chaos in your life. Correct? Correct. The next one, we're going to have a conversation later on today about EI, and we're going to help you see things maybe a little bit differently. For some of us, I don't need that. No, that's not, they don't know. They're not going to help me. But quite frankly, there's maybe one little pearl that a support system or a group or whatnot can share with you so that you can have insight to a situation. And sometimes, and I think this is an important piece as I close, 1 degree of deflection in your pathway in life can make a huge difference. 1 degree. 1 degree. Okay. And then, of course, the cultural and generational conditioning. We can probably have a 3-hour conversation just on that alone, probably, right? For many and most of us. I can't thank you enough for spending the last 50 minutes with me and allowing Quantum to share an understanding, having a shared understanding, a shared knowledge with regards to this conversation today of our emotional well-being and mental health. I want to thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions before we close out? Yes, sir.
What was the 9th component of wellness?
Let's go through it again. All right, come on, Beth. Okay, we have occupational wellness, emotional wellness, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, spiritual, social, environmental, intellectual.
That's it, that's not it.
No? All right.
Health?
No, physical. I think we got them. I think we got them all. But thank you. Glenn, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. So